On February 18, 2001, at NASCAR's most prestigious race, the Daytona 500. An iconic athlete was giving it his all on the track, battling for the safety of his comrades and loved ones as much as for the chance to win. The NASCAR world fell into a terrible quiet as the sound of engines subsided. The intimidator, Dale Earnhardt, had passed away. It was heartbreaking to feel that breeze, yet unable to share it with Dale. Finally, after almost 20 years of quiet, the guy who was there in the commentary booth the whole time, Darrell Waltrip, reveals Dale Earnhardt's terrible final remarks before that tragic collision. Not only did Dale's remarks transform our perception of him, but they also revealed the parent, friend, and legendary figure that he really was. Come back with us as we relive Dale Earnhardt's life, the special bond he shared with Darrell Waltrip, and the events of that tragic day. An enduring symbol of NASCAR and American society, Dale Earnhardt was more than simply a fantastic racer. In order to grasp the profound respect and deep feelings evoked whenever Dale Earnhardt's name is spoken up, one must return to the little North Carolina community where he was formed into a legendary figure. Dale Earnhardt was born on April 29, 1951, in Kannapolis, North Carolina, into a family that was very active in motorsports. Ralph Earnhardt was a famous local race car driver who was well known for his son's talent. Although Dale grew up in a fast-paced atmosphere, his father was concerned that his son would not find stability via racing and did not initially support him. Nevertheless, Dale's fervor could not be quenched. Even as a little boy, he would sneak into the garage and learn how to fix and even drive on his father's old beat-up cars. It was the first step on a path that would lead to both difficulties and profound inspiration. Growing up, Dale Earnhardt was hell-bent on following his racing passion, no matter the cost, even dropping out of high school. He had a really difficult start to his career. Dale overcame financial difficulties and a lack of opportunity in his early races, but he was tenacious and eventually won. Dale Earnhardt Jr. debuted in the 1975 NASCAR Winston Cup season in the Charlotte World 600. Despite his lackluster performance, experts took notice of his daring approach. Dale reached a major career milestone in 1979 when he was named Rookie of the Year. In 1980, Dale Earnhardt became the first driver in NASCAR Cup Series history to win the title directly after being named Rookie of the Year. This feat was accomplished just 1 year later. At this point, the Intimidator had already begun to cement his position as NASCAR's unbeatable champion. He got his moniker because of his reckless driving style. He was more than simply a talented driver. He was also an astute tactician who would stop at nothing to get victory. Unfortunately, Dale Earnhardt's fame was due to more than simply his racing prowess. For his admirers, he personified tenacity and determination. Dale lived frugally despite his enormous wealth. He became a hero to millions of people when he frequently engaged with them, signing autographs and posing for photos. A sign of power and resolve, the black Chevrolet No. 3 that Dale drove was more than simply a representation of speed. Dale Earnhardt tied the great Richard Petty for most NASCAR Cup Series championships won with 7 over his almost 30-year career. Earnhardt won 76 races overall. To Dale, though, winning wasn't about the hardware. It was about influencing generations to come and altering the perception of NASCAR forever. Beyond his racing career, he became a symbol of the American working class and a legend in his own right. Not everyone on the track was prepared to give in to the Intimidator's demands. Darrell Waltrip emerged as one of his most formidable opponents, challenging Dale while also developing a friendship characterized by subtle respect and tension. What occurred when the two racing greats Earnhardt and Waltrip met? Let us delve into the tale of their competition and their surprising bond. Dale Earnhardt and Darrell Waltrip's relationship is an incredibly relatable chapter in NASCAR history. It's about two powerful characters who clashed, competed, and eventually became friends and admirers of one another. Their complicated and emotionally charged relationship, together with the exciting races they produced during their careers, left an unforgettable impression on spectators. Despite their differences, Earnhardt and Waltrip have always been two of NASCAR's most prominent figures. Earnhardt, who went by the moniker The Intimidator, played up his reputation as a daring, aggressive racer. Regardless of the competition, he was hell-bent on coming in first. But Waltrip was a metaphor for strategy and insight. He was famous for reading the race and planning each lap to guarantee a safe and successful win. Their careers were distinguished by their different approaches, which amplified the drama of their on-track encounters. When they collided, it would grab the attention of the media and the fans. In 1985, there was a race in Richmond that stands out. They were both eliminated from the race after a sudden collision as they were hotly racing in the last circuits. On live television, an enraged Waltrip blasted Earnhardt, accusing him of being too rude and confrontational. As is his habit, Earnhardt smiled and shrugged it off, looking forward to the next race. Any incident that occurred on the track was only a blip in his mind. But there were instances when unexpected humor helped them overcome their on-track problems. Waltrip recounted an incident in which he broke 3 ribs after slamming into a wall at the 1995 All-Star race. Then, without delay, he went up to Earnhardt and said, "What were you thinking?" Dale calmly responded, "What were you thinking? Trying to pass me." And then, in a playful way, added, "Hope you learned your lesson. Don't ever try to pass me on the outside again." Earnhardt strode away as if the whole thing had been a passing incident. Their animosity eventually transformed into understanding and tolerance. In addition to being a careless driver, Waltrip started to recognize Earnhardt for what he really was, a loyal and honest buddy. Earnhardt would phone Waltrip on Christmas Eve to wish him well, as Waltrip mentioned in an interview. Waltrip once explained his reluctance to call by saying, "I thought I must have missed it." Dale responded with a smile and a statement along the lines of, "I don't need to call you every year," before he departed. That was Dale, reserved yet kind. Another anecdote describes Earnhardt's kind demeanor at Martinsville. After experiencing severe tire problems, Waltrip's automobile was unable to proceed without obtaining repairs. Earnhardt, who was in the lead, subtly paid for Waltrip's crew to acquire fresh tires, letting his opponent back to the track, even though everyone thought he wouldn't care. It wasn't until Waltrip found out about it years later that Earnhardt brought it up. Waltrip claimed he was selfless and didn't care whether anyone noticed. He was content to do the right thing quietly. Earnhardt acknowledged in a joint interview, "We've argued a lot, collided a lot, but that's part of the game. Darrell is a true champion, has a great family, and I respect him. Don't talk too badly about me." Earnhardt's words showed the recognition and respect Earnhardt had for Waltrip, one of his greatest rivals. Upon reaching the pinnacle of their respective professions, their friendship flourished. Sadly, Waltrip did not have enough time to tell Earnhardt how he felt before he passed away. There was a huge hole in Waltrip's heart after Dale Earnhardt died in the devastating 2001 Daytona 500 collision. On that fateful day, the world's top NASCAR drivers fought on its most renowned circuit for more than just a regular race. It was the season-opening event. That one of NASCAR's all-time greats would pass away on that particular day was completely unexpected. Although it was only a race, Dale Earnhardt saw the 2001 Daytona 500 as a reflection on the quality of his team. Earnhardt crashed the race-leading cars of Michael Waltrip and Dale Earnhardt Jr., 2 drivers on his team. However, Dale wasn't only competing for personal gain, he also ensured the triumph of his comrades by acting as their guardian. Today we race not just to win, but to prove that Dale Earnhardt Incorporated is the best team out there, Earnhardt addressed his squad before the race. The track's tension reached a crescendo as the last laps unfolded. Michael Waltrip took the lead, with Dale Earnhardt Jr. following soon after. Earnhardt protected his teammates from the drivers chasing them. Despite intense pressure from Sterling Marlin, Kenny Shader, Rusty Wallace, and others, Earnhardt maintained his position, defending the formation like a track warrior, thanks to his exceptional racing abilities. The race for victory was the focus of every participant in the last lap. Then, as if by some stroke of fate, Sterling Marlin's car made little touch with Dale Earnhardt's back end. At the 4th corner, the third-place vehicle lost control and slammed into the wall. At first glance, the crash seemed ordinary, a common sight in motorsports, to the viewers in the grandstand and on television. A few seconds later, though, the audio became silent. The energy at the Daytona 500 was palpable, according to Darrell Waltrip. He was in the middle of something very remarkable, both professionally and personally, as he was commentating on the game for Fox Sports. The Daytona 500 was on the verge of being won by Michael Waltrip, his younger brother. As Michael crossed the finish line, it seemed as if Darrell's dreams had come true. In a fit of elation, Darrell yelled out, "Michael did it!" on national television. He succeeded. He was so overjoyed that his voice cracked. However, that happiness was short-lived since things soon became ugly. At that same second, Darrell looked around the course again, trying to find the number 3 car that he had trailed all race long, the one that Dale Earnhardt was most familiar with. A picture that stopped Darrell in his tracks was the immobile automobile, which had previously represented an unstoppable NASCAR icon, leaning against the retaining wall. First, he tried to tell himself that it was nothing new. Earnhardt had been in many accidents before and always seemed to be unfazed by them, laughing and carrying on as if nothing had transpired. Now, though, things were different. Dale did not show any indications of life. He stayed there in the automobile, motionless and silent. Darrell beheld the TV intently, seeking solace in its presence. Nevertheless, as he continued to observe, his anxiety intensified. He started to sound more anxious. "Oh no, look at Dale!" when his voice had previously been full of excitement. "Behold Dale's ride!" Still, he had an overwhelming, unspoken sense that something was deeply wrong. He hoped he was well. As Darrell watched the number 3 vehicle become further embedded in the retaining wall, the seconds passed without a break. As the medical crew drew near the automobile, he noticed that Dale remained still. It seemed as if someone were crushing his heart. He couldn't help but think of Dale, the man he'd raced with, fought tooth and nail for every position on the track, had passionate arguments with, and shared priceless moments casually. Resurfacing like a tidal wave in Darrell's mind were the violent races, devastating collisions, and even the post-battle handshakes. Even though they were bitter opponents, Darrell always held Dale Earnhardt in the highest regard as a friend, a symbol of greatness, and a co-worker. Dale Earnhardt was a man of enormous heart, Darrell said. He was powerful and relentless, but he also cared deeply about his loved ones and the team. In the midst of a chilling stillness, that perception was suddenly being cast into doubt right in front of his eyes. Darrell found it difficult to maintain his composure as the broadcast progressed, and he was on the verge of losing it. Even though he knew the truth was starting to sink in, he still refused to accept the worst. "It was hard for me to accept the fact that Dale was gone," he said in a subsequent interview. "But I knew I had seen a tragedy unfold when I beheld the medical staff and their reactions. In addition to the pain of losing a dear friend, Darrell felt powerless that day, as if he had seen the spirit of NASCAR go from this earth." For Darrell, Dale Earnhardt exemplified all that was admirable, strong, and authentic about NASCAR. He was more than simply a driver. One of the worst moments of Darrell's life, he would later recall, was the instant he noticed the number 3 automobile was still. There have been countless wrecks and tragic events on the track, but this one was unique. Dale was here. It seemed like NASCAR had lost its soul when he was gone because he was unique. The tragic collision wasn't the only thing that made that day so tragic. Dale Earnhardt's last remarks added insult to injury. His words were heavy with significance, as if he were preparing to compete in his final race. Until that fateful day at Daytona Speedway, Darrell Waltrip had kept those remarks to himself for more than 20 years. Dale Earnhardt seems remarkably composed despite the frenetic energy in the air. Those who were familiar with him observed a shift. The ferocious intensity that had characterized his racing character had vanished. Dale told me, "I just want to see Michael win today." This was his buddy and longtime adversary Darrell Waltrip's memorable pre-race exchange. The comment was out of character for the guy, who is known for his dogged pursuit of victory. Instead of worrying about his own ego, Dale put his whole attention on his team and the people he cared about that day. All were taken aback by his behavior. As if relishing every moment, his teammates observed that he spent more time with them, showing affection with embraces and sincere remarks. "It felt like he knew something we didn't," one member said, describing how he wasn't acting naturally. Before the marathon, he wanted to savor every moment. With the inspiring words, "Race like it's the last race," Dale departed from his team. It was more important to Darrell that Michael and Dale Jr. crossed the finish line first. Dale appeared to him as more than simply a rival. He seemed like a buddy as well. "He spoke to me in a manner that felt final," Darrell remarked, his voice quivering. "I don't know if he understood it or not, but in hindsight I believe he was prepared to sacrifice anything for his team." Dale's last remarks were more than just a racing tactic. They showed the complexity of his character. A guy who had lived for track victories, now prioritizing his colleagues' joy above his own. Those remarks became a cherished memory for Darrell, Dale's crew, and millions of fans, a tribute to his impact, generosity, and affection for people in his life. The tragic collision that killed Dale occurred on the last lap when his vehicle slammed into the wall. Dale Earnhardt's passing increased the magnitude of his legacy, even though the audience and spectators at home failed to instantly understand its seriousness. Innovations in safety measures, spurred by his death, have saved many lives in the sport ever since. What truly matters about Dale Earnhardt is not what he accomplished on the track, but rather the people he inspired and the lives he impacted. The lasting influence of his last act of dedication to his team and fans ensures that his spirit will live on, alongside his wins. Dale Earnhardt has left an indelible mark on NASCAR that goes far beyond his illustrious career, changing the sport in ways that foster durability, devotion, and safety. His untimely demise in 2001 triggered seismic changes in the sport's approach to player safety. Even though NASCAR has a history of serious accidents, safety was frequently disregarded before to Earnhardt's death. His downfall prompted much-needed reforms, like as making the hitchhiking accident avoidance head and neck protector, Hans gear, which had been voluntary before, mandatory. Due to this breakthrough, innumerable lives have been spared. The advent of the car of tomorrow, with its stronger chassis and sophisticated safety measures, embodies a dedication to driver protection, and better barriers that absorb collision impacts have decreased casualties. These transformations, which sprung from sorrow, showcase Earnhardt's unwavering drive for creativity and perseverance. Beyond safety precautions, Earnhardt's impact extends. His fearless racing style, which earned him the nickname the Intimidator, represented unwavering determination, an inspiration to drivers and a mesmerizing spectacle for viewers across the world. Iconic moments like his triumph at Talladega with a damaged vehicle displayed his persistent determination. In remembrance of him, every year at Daytona, fans come to wave flags displaying his number 3, a representation of unwavering devotion and enthusiasm. Dale Earnhardt Jr., who continued in his father's footsteps while forging his own unique route, is another testament to Earnhardt's enduring legacy. Dale Jr.'s triumph in the 2004 Daytona 500, which took place only 3 years after his father's passing, was a moving homage to the way Earnhardt Sr. seemed to be leading his son off the track with each lap. Earnhardt brought the NASCAR community together while he wasn't racing. He did this by increasing NASCAR's broadcast exposure and attracting significant sponsors, both of which brought the sport closer to the fans and gave it more prestige. Every race and every fan's heart carries a little bit of Dale Earnhardt's legacy, even if he passed away decades ago. By showing us what it is to be strong, courageous, and leave a lasting legacy, he did more than simply alter NASCAR. He revolutionized it. His legacy will live on in NASCAR and beyond as a legendary figure thanks to the stories and legacies he left behind.